The earthquake struck without warning, and Cassandra North barely had time to scream before the concrete ceiling above her began to crack. She'd been walking through the underground parking garage of her apartment complex, keys in hand, exhausted from another 12-hour shift at the hospital. The fluorescent lights flickered once, twice, then the entire structure groaned like a dying beast. Cassandra looked up and saw the massive slab of concrete breaking free from its moorings, plummeting directly toward her with the inevitability of death itself. Her body froze. Her mind screamed at her legs to move, but they wouldn't obey. Time slowed to a crawl as the debris fell, and in that suspended moment, Cassandra thought of her mother, her younger brother, all the things she'd never said and never done. This was how it ended. Alone in a parking garage, crushed like an insect. Then, something impossible happened. A figure materialized between her and the falling concrete. One moment the space was empty, the next a man stood there, tall and impossibly still. The debris hit him with a sound like thunder, tons of concrete and rebar crashing down with enough force to flatten a car. Dust exploded outward in a choking cloud, but the man didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even sway. He stood there, one pale hand raised above his head, holding the massive slab of concrete as if it weighed nothing at all. Through the settling dust, Cassandra could see him clearly now. He was the most striking person she'd ever seen, with skin like alabaster and hair that fell in white waves past his shoulders. He wore an immaculate black suit that should have been destroyed by the impact, but didn't have a single tear or smudge of dirt. His eyes, when they met hers, were a deep crimson red. "Move," he said, his voice carrying an accent she couldn't quite place, something old and aristocratic. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command that her body obeyed before her mind could process it. Cassandra stumbled backward just as he tossed the concrete slab aside like it was made of foam. It crashed into the far wall with enough force to crack the foundation. The man turned to face her fully, and she saw his features clearly now. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that were almost too perfect to be real. He was beautiful in a way that made her chest tighten with instinctive fear. "Are you injured?" he asked, taking a step toward her. His movements were fluid, predatory, nothing like how humans moved. No, I don't think so," Cassandra managed, her voice shaking. "What are you?" A small smile curved his lips, revealing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. "Observant. Most humans are too shocked to ask the right questions." Another tremor shook the building, smaller than the first, but still enough to send more debris raining down. The man moved again with that impossible speed, suddenly beside her, his arm around her waist as he pulled her against him. She felt the solid, cold strength of his body as he shielded her from falling chunks of concrete with his own back. She heard the impacts, felt him tense slightly, but he made no sound of pain. When the shaking stopped, he looked down at her. Up close, his beauty was almost painful to behold. His eyes weren't just red, they were layered with shades of crimson and burgundy, like wine held up to candlelight. His skin was flawless, unmarked despite the debris that had just pelted him. "We need to leave," he said. "This structure is compromised." "I can walk," Cassandra said, trying to step away from him, but his arm remained firm around her waist. "Not fast enough." Before she could protest, he lifted her into his arms and moved. The world blurred. One moment they were in the parking garage, the next they were outside 3 blocks away, standing in an empty alley. Cassandra's stomach lurched from the impossible speed, and she gripped his shoulders to keep from falling. His body was cold beneath the expensive fabric of his suit, cold like marble. He set her down carefully, steadying her when she swayed. "Breathe," he instructed. "The disorientation will pass." Cassandra leaned against the brick wall, her heart hammering. "You're a vampire." It should have sounded ridiculous, but after what she'd just witnessed, it was the only explanation that made any sense. "Yes." He didn't try to deny it or gaslight her, which she appreciated even in her shocked state. "My name is Yorick Blackthorn. I am the Vampire King of the Eastern Territories." "King," Cassandra repeated faintly. Of course he was. Because this night couldn't get any stranger. "Why did you save me?" Something flickered in his expression, too quick for her to read. "An excellent question, one I've been asking myself." He studied her with an intensity that made her feel like he was seeing through her skin to something deeper. "What is your name?" Cassandra. Cassandra North. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware that she was having a conversation with a vampire in a dark alley. Everything she'd ever been taught about self-preservation said she should be running, but her legs felt like water. Are you going to kill me? No. The answer was immediate and definite. You are under my protection now. I didn't ask for protection. Nevertheless, you have it. Another tremor rippled through the ground, less severe than the previous ones. Yorick's head snapped up, his nostrils flaring slightly. There will be more aftershocks. Your building is not safe. Do you have somewhere else to stay? Cassandra's mind raced. Her brother lived across the city, but with the earthquake, the roads would be chaos. Her best friend was out of state. The hospital. They'll need all hands on deck after this. I should go there. Then I will take you. He moved to pick her up again, but she held up a hand. Wait, you can't just appear at the hospital. People will ask questions. I have questions. She ran a hand through her dark hair, trying to organize her thoughts. You saved my life. Thank you. But I don't understand why, and I don't understand what you want from me. Yorick was quiet for a long moment, his red eyes studying her face with an expression that might have been confusion or curiosity or something else entirely. I smelled your blood, he finally said. When the earthquake began, I was in my quarters beneath the city. I smelled your blood through stone and earth and metal, and He paused as if the words were difficult. I had to reach you, had to ensure your safety. I do not fully understand it myself. Cassandra's hand instinctively went to her neck, even though she knew he hadn't bitten her. My blood. Every human has a unique scent. Yours is... He seemed to search for the word. Compelling, impossibly so. In 3,000 years of existence, I have never experienced anything like it. 3,000 years. The number made her head spin. Is this some vampire thing? Like imprinting? Fate? I do not believe in fate, Yorick said sharply, and imprinting is a myth from your human stories. But there is a connection between us now, whether either of us wishes it or not. I can feel your heartbeat as if it were my own. I can sense your location no matter where you go. And every instinct I possess demands that I keep you safe. That's terrifying, Cassandra said honestly. Yes, he agreed, for both of us. Another aftershock hit, stronger this time, and Cassandra heard the distant sound of car alarms and sirens. The earthquake must have done serious damage across the city. I really need to get to the hospital, she said. People will be hurt. You are a healer. It wasn't a question. A nurse. Trauma unit. Something that might have been respect flickered across Yorick's features. Then I will not keep you from your duty, but I will accompany you. You can't. How would I explain you? I can be discreet when necessary. I will remain nearby but out of sight. If you are in danger, I will know. He tilted his head slightly. Do not attempt to dissuade me, Cassandra North. I am the vampire king. I do not negotiate. There was steel in his voice, authority that had been honed over millennia of ruling. Cassandra found herself nodding before she consciously decided to agree. Fine, but stay hidden. The last thing the ER needs tonight is mass hysteria about vampires. Most humans do not believe we exist. Those who see me will rationalize my appearance as something mundane. He held out his hand. We are wasting time. Every moment we delay, people suffer. He was right. Cassandra took his cold hand, trying not to shiver at the feeling of his skin against hers. This is insane, she muttered. Yes, Yorick agreed. Hold on. The world blurred again. The hospital was chaos. Cassandra had barely walked through the doors before she was swept into triage, helping treat an endless stream of patients with injuries ranging from minor cuts to critical trauma. She worked for 6 hours straight, her hands steady even as her mind kept drifting to the vampire king who was supposedly somewhere nearby, watching over her like some kind of supernatural guardian angel. It should have felt creepy, stalkerish even, but instead, there was a strange comfort in knowing he was there. Several times during the shift, she felt a prickling awareness at the back of her neck, and when she looked up, she'd catch a glimpse of white hair in the shadows of the hallway or feel the weight of crimson eyes watching from an empty doorway. True to his word, he remained hidden. None of her colleagues seemed to notice him, too focused on the emergency at hand. It was nearly 3 a.m. when things finally slowed down enough for Cassandra to take a break. She stepped outside into the cool night air, her scrubs stained with blood and her entire body aching with exhaustion. The parking lot was fuller than she'd ever seen it, cars haphazardly parked by people rushing loved ones to the emergency room. "You need rest," Yorick's voice came from behind her. She wasn't startled. Somehow she'd known he was there. "I need coffee and about 12 hours of sleep, but I'll settle for sitting down for 5 minutes." He moved to stand beside her, his presence both comforting and unnerving. In the harsh fluorescent light spilling from the hospital, his otherworldly appearance was even more pronounced. "You are skilled at your work. I watched you save that child with the collapsed lung." "You were in the trauma bay?" Cassandra asked, incredulous. "For a moment, no one saw me." "That's impossible. There were at least 15 people in that room." "I am very old, Cassandra. I have learned to move through the world unseen when I wish it." He studied her face. "You are wondering if I am a threat. If this connection between us is something dangerous." "Are you?" she asked bluntly. "Dangerous to me?" "Yes." His honesty was jarring. "I am a predator. Violence is woven into the fabric of my being. I have killed more humans than you could count, though I feed now only from those who offer willingly, or from blood banks. But to you specifically." He turned to face her fully. "I would raise cities before I let harm come to you. The thought of your pain causes me physical discomfort. So yes, I am dangerous, but not to you. Never to you." Cassandra should have been running. Every survival instinct should have been screaming at her to get away from this creature who admitted to killing humans. But when she looked into his ancient eyes, she didn't see a monster. She saw confusion, frustration, and something that looked almost like vulnerability. "This connection you mentioned," she said slowly. "Can it be broken?" Something dark flickered across his features. "I do not know. This has never happened to me before." He was quiet for a moment. "Would you want it broken?" "I don't know," Cassandra admitted. "I don't know anything anymore. 24 hours ago, I didn't believe vampires were real. Now I'm standing here talking to a 3,000-year-old vampire king who apparently can't stay away from me because of my blood. It's a lot to process. You are handling it with remarkable composure. I'm a trauma nurse. Crisis management is kind of my thing." She rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building. "I need to understand what this means, Yorick. What happens now? Do you just follow me around forever?" "I have responsibilities, a kingdom to govern, territories to maintain, political alliances to navigate. I cannot simply abandon my duties." He sounded frustrated. "But the thought of being far from you is intolerable. Already, standing here speaking of distance makes my chest tighten with what I believe humans would call anxiety. So we're both trapped by this." "It would seem so." They stood in silence for a long moment, both processing the impossible situation they found themselves in. Finally, Cassandra said, "I need to go back inside, but I get off shift in 3 hours. If you want answers about this connection, maybe we should try to figure it out together." "You would willingly spend time with me?" He sounded genuinely surprised. "You did save my life, and despite the whole vampire king thing, you've been respectful. You could have compelled me or kidnapped me or whatever vampires do, but you didn't. You gave me a choice." She met his eyes. "So yes, I'll give you a chance. We'll figure this out together." For the first time since she'd met him, Yorick smiled. It was a real smile, not the small, polite curve of lips from before, and it transformed his face entirely. He looked younger somehow, despite the weight of centuries in his eyes. "Thank you, Cassandra North. You honor me with your trust." "Don't make me regret it," she said, but there was no real heat in her words. She turned to go back inside, then paused. "And Yorick? You don't have to hide in the shadows while I work. There's a waiting room. You can sit like a normal person." "I'm not a normal person." "Clearly, but you could at least try." She flashed him a tired smile and headed back into the hospital, very aware of his gaze following her until she disappeared inside. 3 hours later, Cassandra clocked out and found Yorick exactly where she'd suggested, sitting in the waiting room like he belonged there. He'd somehow acquired a long black coat that made him look like he'd stepped out of a Gothic period drama, and several people were staring at him with curiosity and appreciation. He ignored them completely, his attention focused on a medical journal he'd apparently been reading. "Ready?" Cassandra asked, slinging her bag over her shoulder. He set down the journal immediately and stood. "Your apartment building was condemned. You cannot return there." "I figured as much." She'd already gotten the text from her landlord. "I'll figure something out. My brother has a couch I can crash on." "No," Yorick's voice was firm. "You will stay with me." "Excuse me?" "I have considerable resources, security, space. It is the logical solution." "The logical solution is not moving in with a vampire I just met." "You will be safe. You have my word." He moved closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "Please, Cassandra, the thought of you vulnerable, without adequate protection, is unbearable. Allow me to provide for your safety." There was something almost desperate in his tone, and Cassandra realized this was about more than just practicality. The connection between them was affecting him deeply, driving him to protect her with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. She should be afraid of that. Instead, she found herself considering it. "Where do you live?" she asked. "I have several residences. The nearest is beneath the financial district. The earthquake did not touch it." "Beneath the financial district," Cassandra repeated. "Like underground?" "Vampires and sunlight do not mix. Underground dwellings are practical. But I assure you, my home is comfortable." She was too tired to argue, and the thought of trying to navigate finding a new apartment in the aftermath of a natural disaster, while also dealing with whatever supernatural connection she had with a vampire king, was overwhelming. "Fine. Temporarily. Until I find my own place." Relief washed over Yorick's features so clearly that Cassandra felt something in her chest soften. He really was struggling with this as much as she was. "Shall we?" He offered his arm like a gentleman from another century. Cassandra took it, trying not to notice how right it felt to have her hand resting in the crook of his elbow. "No weird vampire stuff, okay? No turning me, no blood drinking, no dark rituals." "I would never turn you without your express consent," Yorick said seriously. "The act of making a vampire requires willingness from both parties, or the transition fails. As for blood, I have no need to feed at present, and I assure you, my rituals are far from dark. Quite tedious, actually, mostly paperwork and council meetings." Despite everything, Cassandra found herself laughing. Vampire bureaucracy. Somehow I never pictured that. We are an organized species. We have to be, to remain hidden for millennia. He led her toward the parking lot. "My car is this way." "You drive?" "I am ancient, not primitive." His car turned out to be a sleek black luxury vehicle that probably cost more than Cassandra made in 5 years. He opened the passenger door for her with old-world courtesy, and she slid into leather seats that felt like butter. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and something else, something dark and spicy that she realized was probably just Yorick's natural scent. As he drove through the damaged city streets, Cassandra watched the destruction scroll past her window. Buildings with cracked facades, shattered glass littering sidewalks, emergency crews working under portable lights. "How bad was it?" she asked. "The earthquake." 6.2 magnitude, 37 dead last count, hundreds injured. Yorick navigated around debris with practiced ease. "It could have been much worse. The epicenter was deep, and most of the city's infrastructure held." "But my building didn't." "No, the construction was substandard. The owner cut corners." There was an edge to his voice. "He will face consequences." "Vampire consequences?" Cassandra asked warily. "Financial ones. I own considerable property in this city, and I will ensure he never builds again. His negligence cost lives." Yorick glanced at her. "Is that acceptable to you? Or do you find my interference troubling?" "I think it's weird that you're asking my opinion," Cassandra said honestly. "You're a king. You don't need permission from a human nurse. You are not just any human, and I find myself valuing your perspective." He pulled into an underground parking garage that looked like it served several office buildings. "We are here," The elevator he led her to required a key card and a fingerprint scan. It descended for what felt like several minutes, going far deeper than any normal basement. When the doors opened, Cassandra stepped out into a space that took her breath away. She'd expected something gothic and dark, all stone walls and medieval aesthetics. Instead, she found herself in a modern, elegantly appointed foyer with polished floors and contemporary art on the walls. Soft lighting created a warm ambiance, and she could see doorways leading to what looked like spacious, beautifully furnished rooms. "This is not what I pictured," she admitted. "You expected coffins and candelabras?" There was amusement in Yorick's tone. "Maybe a little. I appreciate beauty and comfort. Both have evolved significantly over the centuries." He gestured for her to follow him. "Your quarters are this way. I had them prepared while you were finishing your shift." "You had them prepared? How?" "I have staff. They are human, well compensated, and aware of what I am. They know to be discreet." He led her down a hallway to a door that opened into a bedroom suite larger than her entire condemned apartment. The bed was massive, with crisp white linens that looked impossibly soft. French doors led to what appeared to be a private bathroom. There was a sitting area with a comfortable couch, a desk, even a bookshelf stocked with current bestsellers. "The bathroom is fully stocked with essentials," Yorick said, "and there's a wardrobe with clothing that should fit you. If you need anything else, simply ask." Cassandra turned to him, overwhelmed. "This is too much. This is the guest suite. It is what I offer to anyone staying in my home." He moved to leave, then paused at the door. "You are safe here, Cassandra. No one can reach you without going through me first. Rest, recover. We will speak more when you are ready." "Yorick," she called as he started to close the door. He looked back at her, his red eyes reflecting the warm light. Thank you," she said softly. "For everything. The rescue, the understanding, this." She gestured at the room. "I know this is weird for both of us, but I appreciate that you're trying." His expression softened. "Sleep well, Cassandra North. I will be nearby if you need me." After he left, Cassandra explored the bathroom and found he wasn't exaggerating. There were luxury toiletries, fluffy towels, even a bathrobe. She showered, washing away the blood and stress of her shift, then changed into the silk pajamas she found in the wardrobe. They fit perfectly, which should have been creepy but somehow wasn't. Yorick had obviously gone to considerable effort to make her comfortable. She should have been too wired to sleep, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. Instead, as soon as her head hit the pillow, exhaustion pulled her under like a tide. She woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, Cassandra was disoriented, forgetting where she was. Then, memory flooded back, and she sat up to find a tray on the bedside table with coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries that looked bakery fresh. There was a note in elegant handwriting. "You slept 14 hours. Do not be alarmed. Your body needed the rest. I took the liberty of contacting the hospital to inform them you would be taking emergency leave. Yorick." Cassandra grabbed her phone and confirmed it was nearly 6 in the evening. She'd slept the entire day away. There were dozens of texts from concerned friends and colleagues, and she spent the next half hour reassuring people she was alive and safe. When she finally emerged from her room, dressed in clothes from the wardrobe that fit suspiciously well, she followed the sound of voices deeper into the underground residence. She found Yorick in what appeared to be a study, sitting behind an antique desk and speaking with a woman who looked to be in her 50s. Both looked up when Cassandra appeared in the doorway. "Miss North," the woman said warmly. "I'm Margaret, Mr. Blackthorn's head of household. I hope you found everything to your satisfaction." "It was perfect, thank you." Cassandra glanced at Yorick. "Though I'm curious how you knew my size." "I estimated based on observation," Yorick said calmly. "Was I incorrect?" "No, you were creepily accurate." She moved into the room. "Am I interrupting?" "Not at all. We were just finishing." Yorick nodded to Margaret, who excused herself with a smile. When they were alone, he stood and moved around the desk. "How are you feeling?" "Rested, confused, hungry." She'd demolished the breakfast tray, but that had been hours ago. "What time do you normally eat?" "I do not eat food," Yorick reminded her, "but I can have Margaret prepare whatever you wish." "Right. Vampire, blood diet. That's going to take some getting used to," Cassandra muttered. "For both of us. I have not had to consider human dietary needs in my own home for some time. He tilted his head slightly. Would you prefer to eat alone, or would you tolerate my company? There was something almost vulnerable in the question, and Cassandra realized he was trying not to make her uncomfortable. Your company is fine, she said, but I want to talk, really talk, about what this is, what it means, and what happens next. I believe I owe you that conversation. Yorick moved to the door. Come, we will speak in the dining room, and Margaret will prepare you a meal. The dining room continued the modern, elegant aesthetic of the rest of the residence. Yorick sat across from her at a table that could have seated 12, looking perfectly at ease in his dark suit. Margaret brought Cassandra a meal that was restaurant quality, then discreetly disappeared. So, Cassandra said, cutting into perfectly cooked salmon, explain vampire politics to me. What does being a king actually mean? Yorick leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. Vampires are organized into territories. Each territory has a ruler, and those rulers answer to the Council of Elders. I am both a territorial king and a member of the council, which gives me considerable influence. I am responsible for maintaining order among the vampires in the eastern territories, enforcing our laws, and ensuring we remain hidden from human awareness. How many vampires are there? In my territory? Approximately 3,000. Worldwide, perhaps 50,000. We are not a numerous species. The process of creating new vampires is difficult and highly regulated. Regulated how? Permission must be obtained from territorial rulers. The human must consent. There are strict rules about who can be turned and under what circumstances. Break those rules, and the punishment is severe. His eyes darkened. We police ourselves harshly to prevent exposure and chaos. Cassandra processed this. So you're basically a supernatural government. In essence, we have laws, courts, enforcement mechanisms. It is not so different from human society, merely hidden. And you've been doing this for 3,000 years. More or less. I was not always king. I spent centuries as a warrior, a scholar, a wanderer. I claimed my territory 800 years ago and have held it since. 800 years of ruling. The number was incomprehensible. What was the world like when you returned? Something distant entered Yorick's expression. Different, smaller. Humans lived shorter lives and believed in magic more readily. Gods walked among mortals, or so we thought. It was a violent time, but also one of great beauty. He refocused on her. But you did not ask to hear an old vampire's reminiscences. You want to know about the connection between us. Yes. Cassandra set down her fork. Can you explain it more? You said you could feel my heartbeat. I can. He placed a hand over his chest. Here. A steady rhythm that is not my own. I know where you are at all times, as if you are a lodestone and I'm drawn north. If you are afraid or in pain, I feel it like a physical blow. He met her eyes. I spent considerable time in my archives today, searching for any precedent. There are stories, legends of vampires who formed unexpected bonds with humans. The old term was bloodmate. Bloodmate, Cassandra repeated. That sounds ominous. It is exceedingly rare, perhaps a dozen cases in all of vampire history. The bond forms without conscious decision, a recognition at a level deeper than thought. The vampire becomes bound to the human's well-being, driven to protect them above all else. Most accounts suggest the human feels a reciprocal pull, though less intense. Do I? Cassandra asked quietly. Feel a pull? You tell me. She thought about it, really examined her feelings. When you're nearby, I feel safe, calmer. The few times today when I woke up and couldn't sense you close, I felt anxious until I realized you were just in another room, and I keep thinking about you, wondering what you're doing. She frowned. That could just be normal attraction, though. You are unfairly attractive. A small smile curved Yorick's lips. You find me attractive? Don't fish for compliments. You know exactly what you look like. But she felt her cheeks heat slightly. I find you captivating, Yorick said seriously. Your courage, your compassion, the strength in you that allows you to face the impossible without breaking. I have known countless humans across the centuries, but none have affected me as you do." The intensity in his gaze made Cassandra's breath catch. "The accounts you found, the other bloodmates, what happened to them?" "The outcomes varied. In some cases, the human chose to be turned, and they existed together for centuries. In others, the human lived out their natural life with the vampire as protector and companion, and when they died, the vampire usually followed soon after. The bond, once formed, cannot be easily broken. Separation causes pain. Death of one half devastates the other. So we're stuck with each other." It should have felt like a trap, but there was something almost thrilling about the certainty of it. Unless you wish to fight it, we could try to maintain distance, though I suspect that would cause considerable suffering for us both. Yorick leaned forward slightly. Or we could accept it. Allow the connection to develop naturally and see where it leads. That sounds like you're asking me on a date. I suppose I am, though I should warn you I am terribly out of practice. The last time I courted someone, the process involved sonnets and chaperoned walks through formal gardens. Cassandra couldn't help but laugh. "We can probably skip the sonnets, though I wouldn't mind the walks." She sobered slightly. "I need to understand what accepting this means, Yorick. You're immortal. I'm not. Even in the best-case scenario, you're looking at maybe 60 years with me if I'm lucky. Is that even worth it to someone who's lived as long as you have?" His expression turned fierce. "Do not diminish yourself. 60 years with you would be more precious than the 3 millennia I have already lived. And there are options if you wish to explore them. The choice to turn would always be yours, but it exists. Becoming a vampire." Cassandra had been trying not to think about that possibility. "What's it like?" "Painful. The transformation takes 3 days, during which the human body dies and is reborn. Not everyone survives, though with a strong maker, the chances are good. Afterward, you would have strength, speed, heightened senses. You would need blood to survive, and sunlight would become deadly. You would watch everyone you know grow old and die while you remained unchanged." He held her gaze. "It is not a gift I would offer lightly, and not one you should accept without deep consideration. But you're offering it. Eventually. If you wanted it. If we reached a point where you felt that was the right choice. But Cassandra, I would treasure whatever time you gave me, whether it is 60 years as a human or 600 as a vampire. The length matters less than the substance." She believed him. She could see the truth of it in his ancient eyes, feel it in the bond that hummed between them. "I need time," she said finally, "to process all of this, to figure out what I want. This is a lot to take in. Of course, I do not expect decisions immediately." Yorick stood, moving with that fluid grace to stand beside her chair. "But perhaps we could begin simply. Spend time together. Learn about each other beyond the supernatural circumstances. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow evening? Margaret is an excellent cook, and I promise no pressure, no expectations, simply 2 people getting to know each other." Cassandra looked up at him, this powerful ancient being who was offering her something as normal as dinner. "I'd like that," she said softly. His smile was radiant. "Then it is a date." Over the next week, Cassandra's life took on a surreal new rhythm. Her days were spent helping at the hospital as the city recovered from the earthquake, and her evenings were spent with Yorick in his underground sanctuary. They had dinner together every night, sitting across from each other in the elegant dining room while she ate and he simply kept her company. They talked about everything. Cassandra told him about growing up in a small town, about losing her father to cancer, about choosing nursing, because she wanted to help people the way the nurses had helped her family. Yorick spoke of ancient civilizations, of watching empires rise and fall, of the loneliness that came with immortality. He was wickedly intelligent, well-read in dozens of languages, and had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh. He was also unfailingly courteous, maintaining a respectful distance even as the bond between them grew stronger. But there were moments when that control slipped. On the 5th night, Cassandra was telling him about a difficult patient when she noticed he'd gone very still. His eyes were fixed on her throat, where her pulse beat visibly against her skin. She stopped mid-sentence. "Yorick?" He blinked, and when he met her eyes, there was something wild there, something hungry. "Forgive me. You are particularly animated tonight, and your blood—" He closed his eyes briefly. I am 3,000 years old. My control is absolute, but you test it. Because of the bond, Cassandra asked, her heart rate picking up. Because of you. The bond makes your blood smell impossibly sweet, yes, but it is more than that. I want you, Cassandra. Not just your blood, though that calls to me. I want your laughter, your thoughts, your time. I want the right to stand beside you, to protect you, to claim you as mine. He opened his eyes. But I will not take what is not freely offered. Cassandra's mouth was dry. And if I offered? Then I would need you to be certain this is not just attraction, though I feel that keenly. This is a bond that will shape both our lives irrevocably. I need to know you understand what you would be accepting. She stood, moving around the table to stand in front of him. Yorick tracked her movement with predatory focus but didn't move. I'm not saying I'm ready for forever, she said quietly, but I know I feel something when I'm with you, something I've never felt before, and I think I'd like to explore that. Cassandra. Her name was almost a groan. You should not stand so close to a vampire who is barely maintaining control. Maybe I don't want you to control it. She was being bold, reckless even, but the bond was humming between them like a live wire, and she wanted to see what would happen if they stopped fighting it. Yorick moved faster than her eyes could track, suddenly standing, his hands gripping the arms of his chair to keep from reaching for her. I could hurt you. You won't? She placed her hand over his, feeling the cold hardness of his skin. I trust you. Something broke in his expression. He pulled her against him with careful control, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other wrapping around her waist. He was cold and hard as marble, but when he lowered his face to the curve of her neck, his breath was warm. Tell me to stop, he whispered against her skin. Don't stop, she breathed. She felt his lips brush her throat, gentle as a prayer, and a shiver ran through her entire body. He didn't bite, just held her there, breathing her in, his body trembling with the effort of restraint. Finally, he pulled back enough to look at her face. You are precious beyond measure, he said hoarsely, and I will court you properly. No rushing, no demands. You will have time to be certain. What if I'm already certain? Cassandra asked. Then we have all the time in the world to explore this. He released her slowly, though she could see the effort it cost him. But for tonight, we should maintain some distance before I forget I'm supposed to be a gentleman. Cassandra laughed, shaky with adrenaline and desire. Okay, distance. I can do distance. Liar, Yorick said, but there was warmth in his eyes. You are as affected as I am. Maybe, she stepped back, putting space between them. I should probably sleep. Early shift tomorrow. Of course. But as she moved toward the door, he caught her hand. Cassandra, thank you for giving us a chance. She squeezed his hand. Thank you for being patient with me. After she left, Cassandra lay in bed, her heart still racing. She could feel Yorick somewhere in the residence, could sense his presence like a warm glow at the edge of her consciousness. The bond was growing stronger every day, and instead of being frightened, she found herself welcoming it. The next evening, Cassandra returned from her shift to find Yorick waiting in the main living area, looking uncharacteristically tense. What's wrong? She asked immediately. We have a situation. Members of the council are coming to visit. They have questions about you. He moved to her side. I have kept our bond private, but rumors have spread. Vampires are curious why their king has taken a human into his home. Is that against the rules? No, but it is unusual, and the council takes an interest in unusual things. He looked at her seriously. They will want to meet you, to assess whether you are a security risk. A security risk, Cassandra repeated. I'm a nurse. You are a human with knowledge of our existence and intimate access to one of the most powerful vampires on the council. There are those who will see you as a potential weakness to be exploited. His jaw tightened. I will not allow them to harm you, but I need you to understand the politics at play. When the council arrives, they will test you. They will try to determine if you can be trusted. When are they coming? Tomorrow evening. 3 council members, Luciana, Dmitri, and Anatole. They are old, powerful, and will show you no deference simply because you are under my protection. He took her hands. I need you to be careful, Cassandra. Do not reveal the depth of our bond. Let them believe you are simply a human I have taken interest in. Why hide it? Because blood-mate bonds are political currency. If they know what you are to me, some may try to use you as leverage, others may question my judgment, suggest the bond makes me compromised. His eyes were fierce. I would burn the world before I let them take you from me, but it would be better if we avoided that necessity. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Cassandra felt warmth bloom in her chest at his protectiveness. I can handle meeting some vampires. I'll be diplomatic. You will be extraordinary as you are in all things. He pressed his lips to her forehead, a gesture so tender it made her breath catch. And I will be beside you the entire time. The next evening, Cassandra dressed carefully in an elegant dress from the mysteriously well-stocked wardrobe. She was nervous, but also curious. She was about to meet more vampires, beings who had lived for centuries and shaped the world from the shadows. Yorick came to collect her, looking devastating in a formal black suit. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes darkening as he took in her appearance. "You clean up pretty well yourself, Your Majesty." She'd taken to calling him that when she wanted to tease him. His lips quirked. "Remember, be polite but not deferential. They will respect strength more than submission." "Got it. No bowing and scraping." He led her to a formal receiving room she hadn't seen before, all dark wood and expensive furniture. 3 vampires were already waiting, and Cassandra's first thought was that they looked like they'd stepped out of different time periods. Luciana was stunning, with the same white hair and pale skin as Yorick, but her features were sharp, almost cruel. She wore a deep crimson dress that looked vintage but impeccably maintained. Dmitri was huge, easily 6.5 feet tall, with a warrior's build and scars visible on his hands. Anatole was slender and scholarly-looking, wearing wire-rimmed glasses that were probably affectation on a being with supernatural senses. All 3 had those same unsettling red eyes. "Council members," Yorick greeted them, "may I present Cassandra North?" "So this is the human," Luciana said, her voice carrying an accent that might have been Italian. She circled Cassandra slowly, openly assessing. "She is pretty enough. What is so special about her that you would bring her into your home, Yorick?" "That is my business," Yorick said coolly. "It becomes our business when one of the most powerful members of the council begins acting out of character." Dimitri's voice was a rumble. "You have not taken a human companion in centuries. Why now?" "Perhaps I was lonely," Yorick said with a slight smile. "Perhaps," Anatole said softly. "There is more to this than simple companionship." He fixed his gaze on Cassandra. "Tell me, Miss North, what do you know of our kind?" "Only what Yorick has told me," Cassandra said, keeping her voice steady, "that you're organized, ancient, and work to remain hidden from human awareness, that you have laws and territories and politics just like any government." "And you are not afraid?" Luciana asked. "I'm terrified," Cassandra admitted, "but fear and respect aren't mutually exclusive. Yorick saved my life during the earthquake. He's been nothing but honorable since. I see no reason to treat him differently just because he's a vampire." "Honorable," Dmitri repeated, sounding amused. "Is that what you call him?" "Among other things." Cassandra met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. Anatole smiled slightly. "She has courage. That is something, at least." He turned to Yorick. "Have you told her about the challenges facing our kind? The hunters who grow more sophisticated, the fractures within our own territories?" "I have not burdened her with political matters," Yorick said. "Perhaps you should. If she is to be part of your life, she should understand the dangers." Luciana moved closer to Cassandra. "There are humans who hunt us, Miss North. Organizations that would see every vampire destroyed. If they learned of your connection to Yorick, they would not hesitate to use you as bait." "I can take care of myself," Cassandra said. "Can you?" Quick as lightning, Luciana's hand shot out toward Cassandra's throat. Yorick moved faster, intercepting Luciana's arm with enough force that Cassandra heard bones crack. He placed himself between them, his expression deadly. "Touch her again, and council member or not, you will face consequences." Luciana withdrew her hand, flexing her fingers as the bones knitted back together. So protective. How interesting. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Forgive me, Miss North. I was simply testing your reflexes, and Yorick's." "You have tested enough," Yorick said, his voice like ice. Cassandra is under my protection. That means something, even among the council. It does, Anatole agreed, and we respect it, Yorick. But Luciana raises a valid point. If Miss North is to remain in your life, she needs better protection than simply your proximity. There are too many ways she could be targeted. I have already taken measures, Yorick said. Have you considered the possibility of turning her? Dmitri asked bluntly. Cassandra felt Yorick tense beside her. That is not a decision to be made lightly or at the council's convenience. But it is a solution, Dmitri pressed. A human companion is a liability. A vampire consort is an asset. I am not a political chess piece, Cassandra said firmly, and I'm standing right here. If you want to discuss my future, at least have the courtesy to include me in the conversation. Silence fell over the room. Then Anatole laughed, a genuine sound. I like her. She has spine. She has more than that, Yorick said quietly. And I will not have her life dictated by political convenience. The choice is hers and hers alone. Luciana studied them both for a long moment. There is a bond between you. Not just attraction, something deeper. I can sense it. Her eyes narrowed. What are you not telling us, Yorick? Only that Cassandra matters to me. That should be sufficient. Should be, but isn't. Luciana looked like she wanted to press further, but Dmitri placed a hand on her arm. We have intruded enough, he said. Yorick has given his word of protection. That is enough for now. He nodded to Cassandra. You're stronger than you appear, human. I hope you survive what is coming. What's coming? Cassandra asked, but the 3 council members were already moving toward the door. Trouble, Anatole said over his shoulder. There are always challenges on the horizon for our kind. The question is whether you will be an asset or a liability when they arrive. After they left, Yorick pulled Cassandra into his arms, holding her tightly. She could feel tension radiating through his body. I'm sorry you had to endure that. It's okay. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She pulled back to look at his face. But Yorick, what did Dmitri mean about trouble coming? He was quiet for a moment, clearly deciding how much to tell her. Finally, he sighed. There have been incidents, vampires turning up dead in several territories, killed with methods that suggest hunter involvement. The attacks are becoming more coordinated, more sophisticated. The council is concerned about a new organization, one with resources and knowledge we have not encountered before. And they think I'm a liability in the middle of that. They think you are a weakness that can be exploited. They are wrong. His arms tightened around her. You are my strength, Cassandra. But I would understand if you wanted to step back, to remove yourself from this danger. She thought about it, really considered walking away. It would be the sensible choice, the safe choice. But when she looked into Yorick's eyes and felt the bond humming between them, she knew she couldn't leave. Didn't want to. I'm not going anywhere, she said firmly. But I think we need to be smart about this. If there are hunters targeting vampires and they might come after me to get to you, then I need to be prepared. What are you suggesting? Teach me. About vampires, about hunters, about how to protect myself. I can't rely on you being there every second, and I won't be helpless. She set her jaw stubbornly. I'm a trauma nurse. I'm good in crisis situations. Let me be an asset instead of a liability. Pride shone in Yorick's expression. You are remarkable. Yes, I will teach you. Everything I know. He cupped her face gently. But you must promise me something in return. What? If there comes a moment when I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. Your safety matters more than anything, including my pride. Yorick. Promise me, Cassandra. Please. She saw the fear beneath his request, the deep terror of losing her. I promise, but the same goes for you. You don't take unnecessary risks. I am 3,000 years old. Risk is relative. I'm serious. As am I. He pressed his forehead to hers. Very well. We protect each other. Over the next 2 weeks, Yorick kept his word. He taught Cassandra about vampire physiology, their strengths and weaknesses. She learned that sunlight was lethal, that silver caused burns but wasn't fatal, that the real way to kill a vampire was decapitation or destruction of the heart. He taught her about vampire politics, the complex web of alliances and feuds that had existed for millennia. He also taught her self-defense, Despite his reluctance to put her in any situation where she might need it, he drilled her in basic combat, how to break holds, where to strike for maximum effect. Cassandra discovered she was stronger than she'd thought, faster too, though nothing compared to vampire speed. They were training in a private gym within the underground residence when everything went wrong. Cassandra was practicing a defensive move when every light in the facility went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red. "Yorick?" she called, spinning to find him. He was beside her instantly, his expression grim. "We are under attack. Stay close to me." "Attack? Who would—" An explosion rocked the residence and part of the ceiling collapsed. Yorick shielded her with his body as debris rained down, then pulled her toward the door. "We need to reach the secure room, now." They ran through hallways that Cassandra had come to know well, but everything looked different in the emergency lighting. She could hear sounds of combat from deeper in the residence, the clash of metal and inhuman screams. "Your staff," Cassandra gasped. "Margaret has protocols for this exact situation. She will be safe." Yorick stopped abruptly, his body going rigid. "Hunters, multiple groups, coordinated assault. They must have been planning this for weeks." "How did they find you?" "I do not know, but we will determine that later. Right now." A section of wall exploded inward, and armed men poured through the gap. They wore tactical gear and carried weapons that looked disturbingly high-tech. Yorick pushed Cassandra behind him and faced the intruders. "Yorick Blackthorn," one of the men said, his voice distorted by a helmet. "The Vampire King. You're worth a fortune to the right buyers." "You've made a grave mistake coming here," Yorick said, his voice dropping into a register that made Cassandra's bones ache. It was a voice of power, of authority built over millennia. "Leave now, and I may allow you to live." "We don't negotiate with monsters." The man raised his weapon. What happened next was almost too fast for Cassandra to follow. Yorick moved like liquid shadow, disarming the first hunter in a blur of motion. But there were too many of them, and their weapons fired some kind of energy that made Yorick stumble when it hit him. "Silver UV rounds," one hunter shouted. "Keep hitting him." Cassandra watched in horror as Yorick fought, taking down hunter after hunter with brutal efficiency. But more kept coming. They were trying to overwhelm him with numbers, and it was working. He was being forced back, driven away from her. That's when she understood. This wasn't just about capturing Yorick, it was about separating them. She saw the hunter moving toward her a second too late. His arm wrapped around her throat, a knife pressing against her side. "Stand down, vampire, or the human dies." Yorick froze mid-strike, his red eyes locking on Cassandra. "Let her go. Your fight is with me. Our fight is with all your kind, but she's leverage." The knife pressed harder, and Cassandra felt the sting as it broke skin. "You're going to come with us quietly, or I start cutting pieces off your pet." Rage transformed Yorick's features into something terrifying. His eyes blazed with an unholy light, and power radiated from him in waves that made the air shimmer. "You dare threaten what is mine?" "Yeah, I dare. Now drop to your—" The hunter's words cut off as the entire residence shook with force that dwarfed the earthquake. Yorick moved with speed that defied physics, and suddenly the man holding Cassandra was flying through the air. Yorick caught her before she could fall, then set her behind him. "Close your eyes," he commanded. "Yorick." "Now, Cassandra, please." She closed her eyes and heard sounds that would haunt her nightmares. Screams, the wet sounds of tearing flesh, the crack of breaking bones. It lasted less than a minute, and when silence fell, Yorick spoke softly. "You can look now." The hallway was carnage. Cassandra forced herself not to focus on the details, instead looking only at Yorick. He was covered in blood, none of it his own, and his eyes still burned with that terrible power. But when he looked at her, something softened. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough. "Just a scratch." "Yorick, there might be more." "There are. I can hear them throughout the residence. This was a coordinated assault with considerable resources." He took her hand. "I need to get you to safety, then deal with the remaining hunters." "I'm not leaving you." "Cassandra." "No, we protect each other, remember? I promised not to argue if you told me to run, but you can't fight all of them and protect me at the same time. So let me help." "How?" He looked frustrated and terrified in equal measure. "I'm a trauma nurse. I know human physiology better than you do. I know where to hit to disable without killing, how to stop someone with pressure points and pain compliance. She met his gaze steadily. Let me be your partner in this. For a moment she thought he would refuse. Then he nodded slowly. Stay behind me. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. And if I tell you to run, I run, I know. She squeezed his hand. Let's end this. They moved through the residence together, a vampire king and a human nurse, facing down trained hunters. Yorick was a force of nature, taking down anyone who got close with efficiency that spoke of millennia of combat experience. Cassandra stayed back, but twice she managed to help by pointing out tactical positions or warning him of attackers he hadn't seen. They found Margaret and the rest of the staff barricaded in the secure room Yorick had been trying to reach. Everyone was safe, terrified, but unharmed. Yorick left them with instructions to remain locked in until he gave the all-clear. The attack lasted another hour. By the end, Yorick had neutralized over 30 hunters, and Cassandra had helped coordinate the staff's safety and even treated injuries among the vampire's human employees. When the last hunter fled, Yorick collapsed against a wall, exhausted in a way Cassandra had never seen. Is it over? She asked, sitting beside him. For now. They will regroup, report back to whoever sent them. We have perhaps days before another assault. He looked at her. This is my life, Cassandra. Constant danger, political maneuvering, violence. This is what it means to be bound to me. I know. She took his hand, not caring that it was covered in blood. And I'm still here. You should not be. You should run far from me and never look back. Too late. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words came out before she could stop them, honest and true. Yorick stared at her. You cannot mean that. I do. I know it's insane and probably not smart, but it's true. I love your strength and your honor. I love how you try so hard to protect everyone around you. I love the way you look at me like I'm precious. I love you, Yorick Blackthorn, and you're stuck with me. He pulled her into his arms so tightly she could barely breathe. I have existed for 3,000 years, and I have never felt what I feel for you. You are my bloodmate, yes, but more than that. You are my equal, my partner, my heart. He pulled back to look at her face. I love you, Cassandra North, desperately, completely, eternally. She kissed him then, and it was nothing like the restrained affection they'd shared before. This was raw and passionate, a claiming and a promise. He tasted like copper and something dark and spicy, and when his arms tightened around her, she felt safe despite the destruction surrounding them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Yorick rested his forehead against hers. We cannot stay here. The hunters know this location. I have other residences, but they may be compromised as well. So what do? We fight back. We find out who organized this attack and we end them, but I cannot do it alone. He looked at her seriously. I need the council's support, and to get that, I need to reveal the truth about our bond. They will use it against us, try to leverage it for political gain. Then we don't give them the chance, Cassandra said. We go to them together, united. We show them that I'm not a liability, I'm an asset. And we make it clear that anyone who tries to use our bond as leverage will face both of us. Pride and love shone in Yorick's eyes. You would stand before the council as my equal? I would stand beside you anywhere, including vampire politics. She stood, offering him her hand. Come on, let's go end this. The emergency council meeting was held in a location Cassandra had never seen, a vast underground chamber that looked like it had been carved from living stone. Hundreds of vampires filled the space, all of them old and powerful, all of them turning to watch as Yorick entered with Cassandra at his side. Luciana, Dmitri, and Anatole sat at a raised dais, along with 4 other council members Cassandra didn't recognize. Luciana's eyes narrowed when she saw them together. You called an emergency session, Yorick. Explain. The hunter attack on my residence was no random assault. It was coordinated, well-funded, and specifically targeted at me. They had information about my security, my staff, my daily patterns. Someone provided them with intelligence. Yorick's voice carried through the chamber. We have a traitor among our kind. Murmurs rippled through the assembled vampires. Dmitri leaned forward. That's a serious accusation. What proof do you have? The weapons they used were specifically designed to harm vampires, silver UV rounds, energy weapons that disrupt our molecular structure. That technology does not exist in the human world without vampire knowledge. Yorick gestured to Cassandra. My bloodmate was targeted specifically to use as leverage against me. Only vampires knew of her existence. The murmurs grew louder. Bloodmate? Luciana stood. You kept this from the council? I kept it private, as is my right, but the secret is out now and I will not hide it further. Cassandra North is my bloodmate, and I claim her before this council as my consort. Any who move against her move against me. Cassandra felt hundreds of pairs of red eyes fix on her, but she kept her head high. Yorick had coached her on what to expect, and she was ready. A human consort, one of the council members she didn't know said. That is highly irregular. But not without precedent, Anatole interjected, and if she is truly his bloodmate, the bond cannot be denied. However, Yorick, you must understand our concerns. A human with such intimate knowledge of our kind is a security risk. Then I offer a solution. Cassandra stepped forward, her voice clear. I will accept formal oaths of secrecy, binding magical contracts if such things exist. I will submit to whatever safeguards the council deems necessary, short of imprisonment or death, but I will not be separated from Yorick, and I will not be used as a pawn in vampire politics. Bold words from a human, Luciana said. I'm not just human. I'm a bloodmate, which apparently makes me somewhat rare. And I'm someone who helped defend against 30 trained hunters while most of you were safe in your territories. Cassandra met Luciana's gaze steadily. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for the respect I've earned. Silence fell over the chamber. Then Dmitri began to laugh, a booming sound that echoed off the stone walls. She has courage. I will grant her that. Very well. I support Yorick's claim of consort status. As do I, Anatole added. The bond is clear to anyone with senses. And frankly, we need Yorick focused on finding the traitor, not fighting political battles over his personal life. One by one, the council members voiced their agreement. Only Luciana remained silent, studying Cassandra with an unreadable expression. Finally she spoke. I do not trust easily, Miss North, but I acknowledge the bond between you and Yorick is genuine. You have my support for now, but know that I will be watching. She turned to Yorick. As for the traitor, we must root them out quickly. If the hunters have vampire intelligence, they are a threat to all our kind. I have already begun investigating, Yorick said. The attack left evidence, and I have resources tracking down the sources of the weapons and funding, but I will need council authority to pursue leads that cross territorial boundaries. Granted, Dmitri said immediately. You have full authority to investigate, and, if necessary, dispense justice. The security of our kind takes precedence. The meeting continued for another hour, with various council members pledging resources and sharing information about suspicious activity in their territories. Through it all, Cassandra stood beside Yorick, and by the end, she realized something had shifted. The vampires in the chamber were looking at her differently, not as an intruder, but as someone who belonged. After the meeting ended, as they were leaving the chamber, Luciana stopped them. A word, Yorick, in private. Cassandra started to step away, but Yorick kept his hand on hers. Anything you wish to say can be said in front of my consort. Luciana's lips quirked. So protective. Very well. She looked at Cassandra. I owe you an apology. When I tested you before, I was trying to determine if you were using Yorick for personal gain. I see now that I was wrong. Your bond is genuine, and you are stronger than I gave you credit for. Thank you, Cassandra said, surprised. Do not thank me yet. I have information you both need to hear. Luciana's expression turned grim. The traitor is likely someone close to one of the council members. The intelligence provided to the hunters was too detailed, too current. It suggests ongoing surveillance. Who do you suspect? Yorick asked. I have suspicions, but no proof. However, I can tell you that whoever it is, they have significant resources and are planning something larger than a single attack. The assault on your residence was a test, a way to gauge our response. She met Yorick's eyes. They are coming for the council itself. The goal is to eliminate vampire leadership and create chaos. To what end? Cassandra asked. That is the question. Humans who want us dead usually prefer quick, violent solutions. This feels more strategic, like someone is positioning pieces for a larger game. Luciana turned to leave, then paused. Watch your backs. Both of you. The hunter attack proved they will use Cassandra to hurt you, Yorick. That makes her the most vulnerable piece on the board. After she left, Yorick pulled Cassandra close. She is right. You are in more danger now than before. The council knows about you, which means word will spread throughout vampire society. And if the traitor is connected to the council, then they know about me too, Cassandra finished. So what do? We stay together. We trust no one outside our inner circle, and we find the traitor before they can strike again. He kissed her forehead. But for tonight, we rest. You have been through enough. They returned to one of Yorick's other residences, an elegant penthouse that occupied the top 3 floors of a high-rise building. Cassandra was exhausted, physically and emotionally, and she fell asleep almost immediately. She woke to find Yorick sitting in a chair beside the bed, watching her with an expression of such tenderness it made her chest ache. "How long have you been there?" she asked, her voice rough with sleep. "A few hours. I find myself reluctant to be far from you, even when you sleep." He moved to sit on the edge of the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck, but alive." She sat up, wincing slightly. "Have you learned anything new?" "Some. I have contacts tracking the source of the weapons used in the attack. We should have answers soon." He took her hand. "Cassandra, I have been thinking about what Luciana said about you being vulnerable. I'm not leaving you. I would never ask you to, but there's another option, one that would give you the strength to defend yourself against any threat." His red eyes met hers. "I could turn you, make you vampire. You would be immortal, powerful, able to stand beside me as an equal in every way." Cassandra had known this conversation was coming eventually, but she still wasn't sure how she felt about it. "Tell me honestly, is this about wanting me to be vampire, or about being afraid for my safety?" "Both," Yorick admitted. "I want eternity with you, Cassandra. I want centuries to learn every facet of your soul. But more than that, I want you safe. And as a human, you are vulnerable in ways I cannot fully protect against. What happens if I say no? If I choose to stay human? Then I will love you for however long your mortal life allows, 50 years, 60, however much time we are given. And when you die, I will follow soon after because I cannot imagine existence without you." His voice was fierce. "But you must understand, the turning is not just about immortality. It is about power, about being able to defend yourself and those you care about. It would give you advantages you do not currently possess." Cassandra thought about it, really considered what he was offering. Immortality, power, the ability to truly stand beside Yorick as an equal. But also giving up sunlight, giving up the human life she'd built, watching everyone she knew grow old and die. I need time," she finally said. "Not because I doubt my feelings for you, but because this is a permanent decision. I need to be sure I'm choosing it for the right reasons, not just out of fear." "Of course. Take all the time you need." Yorick brought her hand to his lips. "I will support whatever decision you make." They spent the next few days in a strange limbo. Cassandra continued working at the hospital, though now she was accompanied everywhere by discreet security that Yorick had arranged. She felt the weight of eyes watching her, both protective and potentially threatening, and it was exhausting. Yorick spent his time investigating, following leads about the weapons and the traitor. He came home each evening frustrated, hitting dead ends and false trails. Whoever was behind the attacks was smart and well hidden. It was on the 4th night that everything came to a head. Cassandra was just leaving her shift when she felt something wrong. The bond with Yorick, usually a warm presence at the edge of her consciousness, suddenly flared with pain and alarm. She grabbed her phone to call him, but before she could dial, someone grabbed her from behind. She tried to scream, but a cloth covered her mouth and the world went hazy. The last thing she remembered was being shoved into a vehicle and the sound of Yorick's voice in her mind, desperate and furious. "Hold on, beloved. I am coming." She woke in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, her hands bound and her head pounding. A woman stood in front of her, elegant and deadly, with the pale skin and red eyes of a vampire. "You're awake. Good. The woman smiled, but it held no warmth. My name is Seraphina. I have been waiting to meet the infamous bloodmate who has captured Yorick Blackthorn's heart. What do you want? Cassandra asked, trying to keep her voice steady. I want what all of us want. Power, freedom, a world where vampires do not have to hide in the shadows, bowing to outdated rules and ancient kings. Seraphina circled her. Yorick and the council represent the old ways, the belief that we must remain secret, that we must limit our numbers and our influence. I believe we should rule openly, as is our right as the superior species. You're the traitor, Cassandra realized. You've been feeding information to the hunters. Very good. Yes, I have been working with certain human organizations. They believe I am helping them destroy vampires, when in reality, I am using them to eliminate the council. Once the old guard is gone, I will kill my human allies and claim leadership of a new vampire order. Her smile widened. And you, my dear, are the bait that will draw Yorick out. He'll kill you, Cassandra said flatly. Perhaps, but not before I kill you. The moment he arrives, I will tear your throat out, and he will watch you die. The great Yorick Blackthorn, brought low by love. It is almost poetic. Cassandra's mind raced, trying to think of a way out. The bond with Yorick was screaming, which meant he was close. She just needed to buy time. Your plan won't work. Even if you kill me and Yorick, the rest of the council will hunt you down. They will try. But by then, I will have allies, vampires who share my vision of a new world order. There are more of us than the council realizes, all waiting for the right moment to strike. Seraphina moved closer. Any last words? The wall exploded inward. Yorick came through the debris like an avenging god, power radiating from him in waves that made the air crackle. He took in the scene instantly, his eyes finding Cassandra, then fixing on Seraphina with murderous intent. Release her, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years of authority. Or what? Seraphina taunted, moving behind Cassandra. You will destroy me? Not before I kill what you love most. You are already dead. You just do not realize it yet. Yorick moved forward slowly, and Cassandra could see the barely leashed violence in every line of his body. Let her go, and I will make your end quick. Continue this, and I will ensure you suffer for centuries before I allow you to die. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Seraphina's face. Then she lunged for Cassandra, claws extended. She never made it. Yorick moved with speed that defied comprehension, catching Seraphina mid-lunge and slamming her into the concrete floor with enough force to crack it. He stood over her, one foot on her throat, his expression terrible in its cold fury. You threatened my bloodmate. You allied with hunters against your own kind. You betrayed the council and endangered all vampires with your ambitions. His voice was judgment itself. I am the vampire king, and I sentence you to true death. Wait, Cassandra called out. Yorick looked at her, surprised. We need her alive. She said she has allies, other vampires planning a coup. If we kill her now, we lose that intelligence. Seraphina laughed weakly. The human shows mercy. How touching. Not mercy, Cassandra said coldly. Strategy. You're worth more alive than dead, at least until we dismantle your entire organization. Yorick smiled, pride evident in his expression. My consort is wise. He reached down and hauled Seraphina up by her throat. You will tell us everything, names, locations, plans, and then, when we have eliminated every trace of your conspiracy, I will end you myself. Within the hour, council members had arrived to take Seraphina into custody. Yorick had called them immediately after securing the warehouse, and they'd come with full force. Cassandra watched as they dragged the traitor away, already using what looked like magical compulsions to extract information. Yorick turned to her, his hands gentle as he untied her restraints. Are you hurt? Just some bruises. I'm okay. She threw her arms around him, holding tight. I felt you coming through the bond. I knew you'd get here in time. I nearly did not. When I felt your fear, your pain, He pulled back to look at her face. I have never known terror like that, not in 3,000 years, the thought of losing you. She kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, she said, I've made my decision about the turning. Yorick went very still. Cassandra, I want to be with you, not just for a human lifetime, but for centuries. I want to stand beside you as an equal, not just someone you have to protect. I want to be vampire. She met his eyes. But not because I'm afraid, and not because it's the practical choice, because I love you, and I want forever with you. Joy and relief washed over his features. Are you certain? Once done, it cannot be undone. I'm certain. Turn me, Yorick. Make me yours in every way. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, and she felt the promise in it. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were blazing. The transformation takes 3 days. It will be painful, but I will be with you every moment, guiding you through it. When do we start? Now. Tonight. I have waited 3,000 years for you, Cassandra North. I will not wait another moment to make you mine for eternity. The transformation was exactly as painful as Yorick had warned. Cassandra felt her body dying, cells breaking down and rebuilding as something new. But through it all, Yorick was there. He held her through the worst of it, his blood giving her strength, his voice talking her through each stage. On the 3rd day, she woke to a world transformed. Everything was sharper, clearer, more vivid. She could hear Yorick's heartbeat in the next room, could smell the blood in his veins, could sense the presence of every living thing in the building. She was strong, so strong, her body responding with speed and power she'd never imagined. Yorick appeared in the doorway, and she saw him truly for the first time with vampire senses. He was magnificent, ancient power wrapped in physical perfection, and the bond between them had deepened into something that resonated in her very bones. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. "Like I could lift a building. Like I could run forever. Like I'm finally exactly who I was meant to be." She moved to him with her new speed, delighting in how easy it was. "Thank you for giving me this. Thank you for accepting it, for choosing to spend eternity with me." He cupped her face tenderly. "My queen, my consort, my bloodmate." "Forever," Cassandra agreed and kissed him. The next months were a whirlwind. With the information extracted from Serafina, the council dismantled the entire conspiracy. Dozens of vampires who had been planning rebellion were brought to justice. The hunter organizations that had allied with Serafina were eliminated, their weapons and intelligence destroyed. Through it all, Cassandra learned to navigate her new existence. Yorick taught her everything, patient and supportive as she grew into her power. She discovered she had a talent for vampire politics, her background as a nurse giving her unique insights into coalition building and negotiation. The council began consulting her on matters of human-vampire relations, and slowly she carved out her own place in vampire society. She missed the sun sometimes, missed being able to walk freely in daylight. But the trade-off was worth it. She had strength, immortality, and most importantly, she had Yorick. They ruled the Eastern Territories together, a king and queen bound by love and an unbreakable bond. 5 years after her turning, Cassandra stood on a balcony overlooking the city, watching the nighttime lights glitter like stars. Yorick joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. "How strange life is. 5 years ago I was a human nurse who didn't believe in vampires. Now I'm a vampire queen helping negotiate peace between supernatural factions." She leaned back against him. "And I've never been happier." "Nor have I. In 3,000 years I have never known contentment like this." He turned her to face him. "You are my greatest treasure, Cassandra, my bloodmate, my consort, my love. You transformed my existence in ways I never imagined possible." "Right back at you," she said with a smile. "Though I have to say, vampire bureaucracy is exactly as tedious as you warned me." He laughed. "Wait until you experience your first full council session. 6 hours of listening to Dimitri and Luciana argue about territory boundaries." "Can't wait," she said dryly. Then, more seriously, "Yorick, I need to tell you something." Concern flickered across his features. "What is it?" "I've been talking to some of the other vampires, the younger ones who were turned in the last century. They've been expressing frustration with how rigid some of our laws are, how the council doesn't always listen to their concerns." She met his eyes. "I think we need to create a formal system for vampires to petition the council, a way for grievances to be heard before they fester into rebellion." Yorick was quiet for a moment, considering. You think we can prevent another Serafina situation by giving vampires a voice? I think a lot of what drove her conspiracy was feeling like the council was out of touch. If we create legitimate channels for change, we remove the impetus for violent revolution. She took his hand. We have the power to make things better, Yorick, not just for us, but for all vampires. Pride shone in his eyes. This is why you are my equal in all things. Your vision, your compassion, even in immortal form, remains your greatest strength. He pulled her close. We will present your proposal to the council. I think they will listen, especially coming from you. You have earned considerable respect in a short time. I had a good teacher, Cassandra said, kissing him softly. They stood together on the balcony as the night deepened, two immortals bound by love and purpose. Cassandra thought about the moment in that parking garage when falling debris had nearly crushed her and a vampire king had taken the blow without flinching. That moment had changed everything, setting her on a path she never could have imagined. She had found her place in the world, not in spite of being different, but because of it. She had found love that would last centuries, and she had found purpose, working beside Yorick to build a better future for their kind. What are you smiling about? Yorick asked, noticing her expression. Just thinking about fate, Cassandra said, about how a random earthquake brought us together, about how all the pieces fell into place exactly as they needed to. I told you I do not believe in fate. Maybe you should start, she teased, because I refuse to believe this was all random chance. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps some things are meant to be. He pulled her close, his lips brushing her ear. I love you, Cassandra Blackthorn. She'd taken his name when they formalized their bond before the council, becoming his official consort and co-ruler. It had felt right, like the final piece of herself clicking into place. I love you too, she whispered back, for now and always. As they stood together looking out over the city they protected, Cassandra thought about everything that had led to this moment. The fear and uncertainty, the danger and violence, the impossible choices and the leap of faith it had taken to accept this new life. She wouldn't change a single moment, because in the end, she had found exactly what she didn't know she was looking for. A partner who saw her as an equal, a love that transcended mortality, and a purpose that gave her immortal life meaning. She had found her home, not in a place but in the arms of a vampire king who had taken a blow for her without flinching and changed her world forever. And they would face whatever came next together, united by a bond that could never be broken, ready to write their own story across the centuries to come. Their forever had only just begun.